Have you ever wondered if it's too late to find love again after 60, or if relationships in your later years can truly be fulfilling? What if you're facing the reality of aging, dealing with the complexities of intimacy, and realizing that the love you once sought may not be the love you need anymore? You're not alone. As we grow older, we often face tough questions about our relationships, whether they still serve us, whether we deserve to feel cherished, and whether we're settling for less than we deserve. In today's video, we'll dive deep into the emotional and transformative journey of one man in his 70s, who spent years chasing a love that seemed like it could heal his soul, but ultimately forced him to confront a painful truth. His story isn't just about heartbreak, it's about rediscovering self-worth, the wisdom that comes with age, and learning that true love starts within. Why should you watch until the end? Self-worth rediscovered. Learn how letting go of a toxic relationship can lead to a profound sense of self-empowerment and dignity, no matter how old you are. The hidden power of aging. Discover the transformative wisdom of aging. How life's experiences, scars, and lessons can make you stronger, more capable of creating fulfilling relationships, and ultimately more at peace with who you are. The importance of self-love. Hear why true love begins with accepting and cherishing yourself, and why it's crucial to stop seeking validation from others, especially when relationships begin to chip away at your sense of self. Navigating toxic relationships. We'll explore the subtle dynamics of control and manipulation that often arise in later life relationships, and why staying in such situations may hurt your emotional and physical well-being. The courage to walk away. Understand the strength it takes to leave behind something that no longer serves you, and how that decision can spark the freedom and independence that come with embracing your later years. As this man's journey unfolds, you'll gain insights into how love, dignity, and self-respect are intertwined, and why reclaiming your own narrative is the most powerful thing you can do as you age. If you've ever doubted that you deserve the love and respect you seek, this video is for you. Stick with us until the end, and let's uncover together how you can navigate the changes of life, love, and aging with grace and resilience. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I encourage you to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on today's topic. If you enjoy the content, please comment 1 below. If it doesn't resonate with you, leave a 0. Your feedback is crucial as it helps me create better videos that align with your interests. Now, let's get started. At first, he had known deep down that this relationship would not be easy. He had sensed it in his bones, that gut feeling of doubt that lingered in the back of his mind, warning him that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. Friends looked on with disapproval, shaking their heads and whispering behind his back. Younger people didn't hesitate to reprimand him, their words sharp, judgmental. But he was determined, fiercely so. At 70, his heart still beat with a vitality that defied the years. He wanted to prove, to himself and to the world, that love had no expiration date. This was not just another fleeting passion, it was the grand love story of his life, and he was ready to embrace it fully, with everything he had left to give. In the beginning, everything seemed magical. She had breathed new life into him, her energy and youth awakening a fire he thought had long been extinguished. She made him feel alive, as though he were rediscovering parts of himself that had faded into the background of old age. Her words were like a balm, soothing and flattering, filled with admiration and care. She complimented him constantly, lifting his spirits and making him believe he still possessed a magnetism that was irresistible. He was captivated by her. Her eyes held an intensity that promised affection and understanding, and every touch, every smile, made him feel powerful again, something he hadn't felt in years. He threw himself into the relationship with abandon, doing everything in his power to satisfy her, to make her feel cherished, adored. She was his queen, and he was her devoted knight. But what he failed to see, blinded by his need to be wanted, was the subtle shifts in her behavior, the quiet, insidious way she began to wield her control. At first, it was small things, casual requests, little suggestions that seemed harmless, even flattering. But over time, those requests turned into demands, delivered with an air of superiority that he mistook for simple attraction. She would tell him how lucky he was to be with someone as vibrant as her, a remark that was meant to elevate her while subtly diminishing him. And he didn't see it. Gradually, her treatment of him grew more condescending. She began to criticize, not directly at first, but in ways that stung, disguised as jokes or well-meaning advice. "You should really take better care of yourself," she would say, her voice laced with a subtle disdain. "Men your age shouldn't have such limitations." The first few times, he tried to laugh it off, brushing it aside as a playful jest, a product of her youth and energy. But the jabs came more often, and with each one, he felt a little piece of his dignity slip away. She began to call him too old for her, a phrase that struck him like a slap in the face. It wasn't the words themselves, but the cold, calculated way she said them. Then came the final blow, the cruelest cut of all. She began to tear into his performance in the bedroom, a sacred space where he had always prided himself on his ability to give love and pleasure in ways that went beyond the physical. She told him he was too slow, too predictable, too tired to keep up with her desires. She compared him to younger men, reminding him constantly of his age and limitations. He tried to argue, to explain that love was not measured by youthful strength, but by the depth of connection and the care one gave. Yet, every word he spoke, every attempt to convince her, was met with a sharp, dismissive retort. If you are still watching this video, and find these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. He had once believed in his ability to make her feel cherished, to show her a kind of affection that was more profound, more meaningful than anything youth could offer. But now, all those convictions felt hollow. His passion, once a source of pride, had become a desperate plea for validation, and she saw it as nothing more than the pathetic attempts of an old man clinging to relevance. The mockery stung like nothing he had ever known. It was as if everything he had given, every ounce of his heart, had been reduced to a joke. He tried to convince himself it was a test, that if he just endured, if he remained patient and understanding, she would eventually see his worth, his devotion. But deep down, the seed of doubt had been planted, and it grew with each passing day. He had thought that love could heal, could transcend age, but now he wondered if it was all just a fleeting illusion, a desperate grasp at something he would never truly be able to hold. Each of her remarks, each subtle insult, chipped away at the fragile self-image he had fought so hard to maintain. Slowly but surely, he began to see himself through her eyes, an aging man whose value had diminished, whose worth had been defined by the passing of time and the physical signs of age. He no longer saw the man he had once been, the strong, confident man who had been full of vitality and life. Instead, he saw only a reflection of his own insecurity, a man who had become small and insignificant in the eyes of someone so much younger. The love he had so desperately clung to, hoping it would revive something in him, had instead suffocated the very essence of who he was. For anyone looking in from the outside, it would be easy to condemn his decision to stay in such a relationship. It would be easy to say he should have walked away long ago, that he was selling himself short by allowing such treatment. But anyone who has lived a long life understands the complexity of love, especially the kind that comes later in life, when so much has been experienced, and so much is left to prove. Love, in its most challenging form, has a way of taking hold of us, trapping us in its grip, forcing us to accept things we never would have tolerated in our youth. It is not so much the love itself that binds us, but the desperate need to feel seen, to feel important, even when the world, especially a younger world, seems to disregard us. He was no longer simply in love with her youth. No, it had become something deeper, something darker. He was now bound by the idea that he could prove himself to her, that he could win her heart despite the years that separated them. He had convinced himself that his worth could still be validated by someone who seemed incapable of looking past the surface of his age, someone who couldn't see the richness of a lifetime lived, the depth of experience he had acquired. The realization that he was chasing an illusion, a love that was based more on his ability to fulfill her needs than on any true emotional connection, slowly gnawed at him. One night, after another argument, one that made him feel even smaller than before, he stood before the mirror, staring at the reflection of a man he barely recognized. The wrinkles on his face, the slight sag of his skin, the deep lines etched from years of laughter and sorrow, they all stared back at him, accusing him of something he hadn't quite realized he was doing, betraying himself. In that moment, he understood that self-love had to rise above the need for approval. He could no longer live in the shadow of someone who could never accept him for who he truly was. The weight of this realization was both painful and liberating. He knew what he had to do. With a calmness that surprised even him, he approached her. He told her he was ready to end the relationship. He could no longer tolerate the humiliation, no matter how much he loved her. Her eyes widened in disbelief, as if she had never expected him to find the strength to leave. In that instant, he felt a quiet resurgence of dignity. It wasn't the kind of dignity he had once known, full of youthful arrogance and brash confidence. No, this was the dignity of a man who had lived, who had experienced the full spectrum of life and was no longer willing to shrink himself for anyone. He was acting not from weakness, but from the wisdom that only time can offer. The conversation that followed was uncomfortable, to say the least. But in that discomfort, he found his freedom. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he was standing tall again, not physically, but emotionally. He was no longer the man who had allowed himself to be humiliated, to be molded by someone else's vision of what he should be. He was reclaiming his power, his worth, his right to be loved and respected for who he was, not for who someone else wanted him to be. As he left her house that night, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It wasn't just the relief of walking away from a toxic relationship, though that was certainly part of it. No, it was the deeper relief that came from finally accepting that not everyone would understand or appreciate the value he brought to the table, especially those who only saw the surface, who were too blinded by youth to recognize the treasures that come with age. His self-worth was no longer dependent on her approval, or anyone else's. He realized that he had been losing himself in an attempt to fit into a mold that was never meant for him. The following days were not easy. Solitude returned, as it often does after a breakup, but this time, it was different. It was not a lonely, desperate solitude, but a dignified one. A solitude in which he could finally breathe without the pressure of proving himself. He had learned that true love is not about validation, but about acceptance. Acceptance of who we are, flaws and all. And he had accepted himself. In the months that followed, he rediscovered joys that he had long forgotten. He reconnected with old friends, some of whom had drifted away as he had become consumed by his need for her love. He traveled to places he had always dreamed of visiting, and he embraced hobbies he had once abandoned. Most importantly, he learned that his value did not rest in the approval of a younger woman, or anyone for that matter. His value lay in the peace he found when he looked in the mirror and saw not a man defined by his age, but a man defined by his experiences, his wisdom, and his ability to love himself. Each wrinkle on his face told a story. Each gray hair marked a memory. And as he walked through life with renewed purpose, he understood, at last, that aging is not a curse, but a gift. It brings with it the wisdom to know what truly matters, the ability to love deeply and freely, without needing anyone else's approval. And most importantly, it brings the courage to walk away from anything that doesn't honor our worth. He no longer needed to sacrifice himself to satisfy others. No longer would he measure his worth by what others demanded from him. He had learned the invaluable lesson that, in the later years of life, true happiness and fulfillment must come from within. His journey was no longer about seeking validation from anyone, especially not from someone who couldn't see the depth of his soul, the vastness of his lived experiences. Now, his focus shifted toward his own satisfaction, his own peace of mind. This story serves as a powerful reminder to other elderly people who may be struggling with similar doubts and insecurities. The desire for love, the longing for connection, is perfectly natural. Who doesn't want to be loved and cherished, especially in one's twilight years? But it is essential to understand that love should never come at the cost of inner peace, never at the expense of one's dignity. As time passes, we learn lessons that only the years can impart, lessons about the fleeting nature of external approval and the lasting value of self-acceptance. Only those who have lived long enough understand the profound importance of maintaining one's dignity, especially when faced with the empty promises of youth, whose allure can cloud the deeper truths of love. For him, this relationship, though painful and demeaning at times, had ultimately been a valuable learning experience. It taught him the hard yet essential lesson of acceptance, not just of others, but of himself. It taught him the importance of standing firm in his own principles, even when faced with harsh criticism. He came to realize that to be truly loved, he first needed to love himself, completely and unconditionally, flaws and all. This was no easy task, but it was the cornerstone of his personal transformation. The decision to end the relationship, to walk away from the ridicule and the hurt, was not just about leaving her, it was about reclaiming his identity. It was about recognizing that, as much as he had longed for her affection, he could no longer sacrifice who he was for the sake of proving himself to someone who could never see him for the whole man he had become. Many who hear this story may see it as an example of the importance of self-love, especially in the face of difficult relationships that seem to undermine our confidence. In truth, this is a lesson that resonates most deeply with the elderly, who have lived long enough to understand the priceless value of dignity and self-respect. It's a lesson that, once learned, stays with you for the rest of your days. A man's worth is not determined by his age or physical appearance, but by his integrity, his ability to remain true to himself even in the face of adversity. The true measure of a man lies in his strength of character, in his ability to preserve his dignity no matter how challenging life may be. And it is this integrity that transforms every wrinkle, every gray hair, into a symbol of wisdom, of a life well lived. Based on his journey, I'd like to offer 5 essential lessons to older individuals who may be grappling with relationship challenges. The first lesson is that, as tempting as it may be to try and recreate the glory of youth with someone younger, it's crucial to keep both feet firmly grounded in reality. It's easy to get swept up in the allure of youth, to chase after the illusion of vitality that comes from being with someone who represents a version of life you once knew. But, as this story so poignantly reveals, doing so often leads to losing oneself in the process. Many older individuals, like the character in this story, find themselves giving their time, energy, and emotions to someone who doesn't truly appreciate them, who is either too blind or too selfish to recognize their worth. The desire to prove one's vitality and ability to still perform in certain ways can easily become a trap, forcing you to endure humiliations and compromises you would never have accepted at a different stage of life. The second lesson this story offers is the irreplaceable value of self-love. In the beginning, the character believed that tolerating caustic comments about his age and performance in the name of love was noble. But he soon discovered that, in tolerating such treatment, he was giving up a piece of himself. He had convinced himself that putting up with her cruel remarks was an act of devotion, when in fact, he was sacrificing his own dignity. To love oneself is not selfish. It is the very foundation of any meaningful relationship. It's a commitment that must come before any other. When we forget our own value, we open ourselves to the contempt of others, allowing others to see us as less than we are. But when we recognize that we deserve respect, compassion, and affection, that is when we build the foundation for a healthy and loving relationship. Only from a place of self-respect can we give and receive love freely, without fear or compromise. Third, never underestimate the power of emotional resilience. The character's journey is one of not just physical survival, but emotional survival. He was tested, broken down, but ultimately emerged stronger for it. Life in later years often presents emotional challenges that younger people may not fully understand. Yet, it is precisely in these moments of difficulty that emotional resilience becomes our greatest ally. The ability to bounce back, to stand firm in our own sense of worth, is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Fourth, we must recognize that not everyone is meant to be part of our journey. While it is easy to feel that we must be loved by everyone or that every relationship should be kept intact, the truth is, some people simply do not belong in our lives. It's not about bitterness or anger, but about understanding that relationships, like all things in life, must serve a purpose. If they do not bring us peace, if they diminish our sense of self, then it is better to walk away. It is better to walk alone with dignity than to stay trapped in a relationship that continually degrades you. Finally, embrace aging as a gift. In his final realization, the character found peace. Aging, rather than something to be feared or avoided, became something to be embraced. Each wrinkle, each gray hair, was not a mark of decline, but a mark of lived experience. Aging teaches us to embrace who we are, to cherish the wisdom we've gained along the way. It reminds us that love is not about physical appearances or youthful performance, but about connection, understanding, and shared respect. True love, at any age, is about finding someone who sees us for who we are, not what we once were, or who we might try to be for someone else. It's about being seen, valued, and loved for the whole, authentic person we are today. The final lesson in this man's journey is perhaps the most profound: the courage to embrace solitude as a form of peace. When he decided to end the relationship, it was not merely the conclusion of a romantic chapter, it was a reclamation of himself. Choosing solitude, even temporarily, instead of enduring further humiliation, was a difficult yet empowering decision. It's a form of strength that only those who have lived long enough can truly understand. Solitude, when accepted consciously, is not a punishment, but an opportunity to restore self-esteem and reclaim inner peace. In the quiet of his own company, he found a stillness that no one could take from him, a space where he could reassemble the fragments of himself that had been scattered in the chaos of the relationship. The fourth lesson is that with age, our experiences and memories become real treasures, and those who fail to recognize this imprison themselves in superficiality. Wrinkles, gray hair, each visible sign of aging tells a story. Each one offers a lesson, a chapter in the rich history of a life well lived. This man understood that he didn't need to chase an image of perfect youth or try to please someone who sought only the surface. What he had now was something far deeper: wisdom, experience, and the integrity that comes from living authentically. The value of accumulated wisdom cannot be underestimated. Those who seek only the superficial will never appreciate the true worth of a person. Trying to gain the approval of those who cannot see us for who we truly are is ultimately a futile exercise. The fifth lesson is about respect, both giving it and demanding it in return. The man's devotion to his partner, despite his waning physical vitality, showed his willingness to put her needs before his pride. Physical closeness and affection can be expressions of love, and at any age, showing care for someone is a sign of emotional maturity. However, what he learned painfully was that respect must be mutual. A relationship cannot thrive on one-sided devotion. If respect is not reciprocated, love becomes a hollow, unbalanced exchange. Lastly, the most crucial lesson is, never accept humiliation. Dignity should be non-negotiable, no matter your age. Everyone has the right to be treated with respect, and if someone tries to belittle you, whether because of your age or any other reason, it's essential to speak up and, more importantly, to walk away. True love is founded on mutual respect. In the end, the man made the wisest decision of all. He chose to honor his own worth. It was the most courageous act he could have made, and the most liberating. For those of us who have lived long enough to witness the changes that come with age, this story holds a profound lesson. Self-respect is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, whether romantic, familial, or with friends. It's easy to feel forgotten, overlooked, or even invisible as we get older. But we must remember, our experiences, our wisdom, and our dignity are just as valuable as they ever were, if not more so. No one has the right to diminish our worth, regardless of how much they may seem to offer in return. As we grow older, we may find ourselves navigating new relationships or revisiting old ones. It's vital to recognize that we don't have to prove anything to anyone, especially when it comes to our self-worth. We've lived through enough to understand that superficial attractions fade, and what truly endures is respect, understanding, and shared values. This man's story teaches us that sometimes, the most difficult, painful choices are the ones that allow us to reclaim our strength. When we stop accepting mistreatment and choose to walk away from toxic relationships, we open the door to real love, not just love from others, but love for ourselves. It's not easy to stand up for yourself when you're in the midst of a difficult relationship, but it is necessary to preserve your peace and your dignity. At the end of the day, we deserve relationships that uplift us, not ones that drain us. We deserve to be seen, not just for our physical appearance, but for the richness of the experiences we carry with us. And we deserve love that respects and celebrates us, no matter our age. For those who feel pressured by society to keep up or to prove their relevance, remember this: you are already enough. You've lived through decades of triumphs and challenges, and your worth is not defined by someone else's approval or societal expectations. Your value comes from within, from the depth of your soul and the integrity with which you live your life. As we move through life, we will all face moments that challenge our self-worth. But those challenges also present opportunities to grow stronger in our understanding of who we are, what we want, and what we refuse to tolerate. The elderly man in this story found peace when he chose to honor himself, and so can we all. If you're facing a similar situation, whether it's a relationship that feels draining or you're questioning your own self-worth, remember this: you have the power to change the narrative. You don't have to stay in situations that diminish your dignity. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. The most powerful thing you can do is honor yourself, even if it means walking away from something or someone that no longer serves you. It may be difficult at first, but as we grow older, we come to realize that our time is precious. The moments we spend should be with people who make us feel good about ourselves, who respect us, and who understand that our worth isn't based on how young we look, but on the richness of our experiences and the love we are still capable of giving. So, to those watching, I encourage you to reflect on your own relationships. Ask yourself, do I feel respected? Do I feel valued for who I am, not just for what I can give? It's never too late to make a change, to reclaim your peace, and to put yourself first. What have you learned from this story of self-discovery and transformation? As we've seen, true love and happiness, especially in our later years, begin with self-acceptance and dignity. The lessons about valuing ourselves, not through the eyes of others, but by our own standards, are some of the most profound we can learn. So, I want to hear from you. What's one thing you've learned from this journey that you plan to bring into your own life? Maybe it's about standing up for yourself, or perhaps embracing the wisdom that comes with age. Whatever it is, share it with us in the comments below. If you found value in this video, please leave your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you won't miss more stories and insights that could inspire and empower you in your own journey of growth and fulfillment. Remember, no matter what age we are always worthy of love, respect, and, most importantly, self-respect. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.